I call Baroness Randerson to ask the first oral question.
I beg leave to ask a question standing in my name on the order paper.
Baroness Vera Norbiton.
My Lords, the Department for Transport regularly engages with stakeholders within the freight industry. The Cabinet Office's Border and Protocol Delivery Group has been working closely with the sector on delivering the required preparations for the end of the transition period, including new customs procedures for freight.
Baroness Randerson.
The Sevington lorry park, designed to relieve queues of around 7,000 lorries on Kent motorways, won't be ready until the end of February. Meanwhile, the government have rejected a bid from Dover Port for funding for more passport checkpoints to reduce queues. My Lords, the government have had 3 years to prepare for Brexit. Can the noble lady, the Minister, explain how they've got themselves into such a chaotic mess? Why have they refused Dover funding for essential infrastructure? And what will be the impact of these 2 government mistakes on food supplies?
Well, very briefly on the Port Infrastructure Fund, 41 ports will be getting support. There were bids for £450 million and the pot was only £200 million. So it is the case that some places were disappointed, but ministers and officials stand by to address concerns. And on Sevington, the site will open as planned on the 1st of January to manage traffic should there be disruption. And as always, you would expect a government to have a plan B, and that is why the customs checks will take place at Ashford Waterbrook and will transfer to Sevington in due course.
Lord MP.
Will my noble friend tell the House what arrangements have been made in ports on the west coast of Scotland and England for the provision of examination of some goods that are travelling to Northern Ireland? And secondly, can she tell the House, given that the infrastructure in Northern Ireland ports for these inspections is not yet complete, what arrangements have been made, interim arrangements, to avoid long delays?
My Lords, the Port Infrastructure Fund provided funding, as I have said before, to 41 ports, and they will be able to put various things in place. It is the case that work is ongoing with devolved administrations for ports in Wales, and also conversations are ongoing with the Northern Ireland Executive to make sure that goods travelling across the Irish Sea can do so successfully.
Lord Davis of Gower.
On January the 1st, the UK will have another frontier with the EU in the form of the sea border between Wales and the Republic of Ireland. The ports of Holyhead, Fishguard and Pembroke Dock handle more than 500,000 lorries and trailers a year crossing between Great Britain and Ireland, with Holyhead now the second largest roll-on, roll-off port in the UK after Dover. A report in the last few days from the Welsh Affairs Committee of the House of Commons warned that the necessary systems and infrastructure may not be ready in time for full implementation of the new border checks. Can my noble friend the Minister give an update on the capability of the checking facilities and assure those that operate in and out of these Welsh ports that they are now oven ready for the 1st of January and able to cope?
I'd like to reassure my noble friend that we are working very closely with the Welsh Government on a cross-government basis to make sure that all ports are as ready as they can be. But I'd also like to reassure noble Lord that it is the case that from the 1st of January 2021 the UK will have autonomy to introduce its own approach to goods imported to GB from the EU. But recognising the impact of coronavirus on businesses' ability to prepare, it is the case that the checks will be introduced in 3 phases. And that will be up to the 1st of July. So we do have the ability to be flexible and pragmatic, and that is the approach that we will take.
Lord Mount Evans.
My Lords, I note my maritime general interests. The UK has very good ports and excellent people who have worked hard throughout the pandemic, and particularly now, to resolve some of the current difficulties which are not unique to the United Kingdom. The solution to some of these rest within the industry, and great efforts are being made, but the government also has an important way. Can I ask the noble lady, the Minister, if the scope for easements and flexibilities that can assist on the movement of goods and vehicles and trains in and out of ports, if these easements and flexibilities are being followed with the greatest diligence possible at this time?
I too pay tribute to the enormous amount of hard work that is going on in our ports at the moment. It is the case, according to the World Shipping Council, that we are currently beyond anything that anyone could have predicted in terms of the global container system, which is currently running hot, my lords. And so, therefore, we are doing whatever we can to support the ports. Indeed, I had a call with a huge number of freight representatives yesterday. We talked about the elements that government is able to do. For example, we have made adjustments to drivers' hours for those road hauliers which have food or food in mixed loads on the road. And, of course, we're working very closely with the rail freight industry.
Baroness Quinn.
My Lords, it seems that the costs of implementing Brexit are great, and bureaucracy has greatly increased as a result, which is the opposite of what we were promised. Can I ask the Minister if she accepts the assessment of Logistics UK that the current delays could last for months? And can she also tell us about how many people are being employed on the extra helplines for business and how they are being trained, given that the outcome of the current negotiations is so uncertain?
Well, it is the case that the outcome of the current negotiations will not impact the status of needing customs forms or not. But essentially, the length and the duration of any delays will depend on how quickly we can get hauliers and traders into the new regime of needing custom checks when they cross the border. This is something that happens in borders, across borders, all over the world. It is the case that we have got 46 information and advice sites. We have had tens of thousands of visits. There is a haulier handbook, and we are working very, very closely with the haulier representatives to make sure that people are ready. My Lords, we do not want to see the delays continue for very long, but it really will be up to the industry to work with us.
Lord Bradshaw.
Will the noble Lord, the Minister, bring us up to date on what lavatory and welfare facilities are available for lorry drivers who will be delayed to some extent, whatever happens?
I would like to reassure the noble Lord that we are working very closely with the Kent Resilience Forum and indeed with all of the operators of the various contingency elements within Kent. We are looking and making sure that there are sufficient lavatory arrangements, that also that the sites are COVID secure, and that the driver's welfare is as good as it can be.
Lord Lilly.
Could my noble friend confirm that delays at Dover are not unusual, that on average Operation Stack has had to be implemented 11 times a year over the last 20 years. In 2015 it was in operation for 23 consecutive days, and queues of 7,000 lorries built up with delays of 35 hours. It didn't bring the United Kingdom to a halt, and nor will any teething problems of the new system bring the United Kingdom to a halt. It didn't attract much attention from those who now weep salt tears in anticipation and almost ghoulish delight of any problems which may temporarily occur.
It is the case that traffic across the short straits is very, very frequent. There is a large volume of it, and when small incidents do occur, that backups can happen. And actually, at this moment in time, we are facing not only post-COVID freight movements, pre-holiday stock building, end of transition stock building, but also an increased spending on consumer goods. So whilst we recognise that these factors will play an important role as we head into January, I do believe that if hauliers and traders are ready, we can minimise any delays.
Lord Rosser.
What is the government's estimate of the cost to date to businesses and the UK economy of current delays and congestions at our ports, such as Felixstowe and Southampton and London Gateway, which together represent 70% of container freight coming into the UK? What is the government's estimate of the cost of these delays to businesses and the British economy?
I'm not aware that the government has done an assessment of that because, of course, this is not a UK domestic problem. This is a global issue that's happening at the moment in time. And what normally would happen is that the peak shipping time would happen in October. And what has happened this time is that it is extended well beyond October and is basically unprecedented. But as I said to other noble lords, we are working very closely with hauliers to improve container collection. We're working very closely with ports to make sure that there is sufficient capacity. A number of of large container ships are changing their port of destination at quite short notice. And so, therefore, there is a huge amount to be done. But, my Lords, it is being done by private companies. It is a private sector. But the government absolutely stands by and ready to help.